I was praying to God last night, and I was like, Lord, I don't know what to talk about. Like, I don't know what to share to you guys. And at first I was like, I want to talk about Job, because I've been reading about Job for a couple days to almost a couple weeks now, and you know, the story of Job is so interesting, but I didn't want to like dive too deep in there. But you know, I was like, last night it was like late, I was like, Lord, I don't know if I can do this. I don't know if I can really share. I was close to texting Queen App and be like, I can't do this. But the Lord really spoke to me last night, 2, 3 in the morning. He was just like, how do you have such little faith in me? And he told me, Rai, like, I walked with you. We've journeyed together from where you were to where you are now. How did you trust me then, but you don't trust me now? Do you get what I mean? And so I was like, true, right, yeah, that's right, Lord, that's right. Because sometimes when we're faced with situations that may be tough for us, we begin to forget our journey with God, right? We begin to forget, and our faith begins to just pummel down. So today I want to talk about faith, unwavering faith. And you know, there's 3 points that I want to make today, but most of the time I'll be talking about different characters of the Bible. There's a lot of great men and women of God that has great faith, has unwavering faith, but I chose 4. All right, so there's Ruth, there's Job, there's Joseph, and there's Abraham. Oh wait, 5, and Daniel. So I'll try to get through everyone, but today my first point is going to be that faith is uncomfortable. All right, can we say uncomfortable? Right, faith is uncomfortable. So let's first take a look at Ruth. If we can go to Ruth 1, verse 16 to 18, please. Right now. All right, so this is after Ruth lost her husband and Naomi lost her sons. All right, so this is basically Naomi is now saying that you guys are free to go, her daughter-in-law. So there's Ruth, and I always call her Oprah because it's kind of like Oprah, but it's Oprah or Orpah, O-R-P-H-A. P-A-H, but anyways, I always call her Oprah. But anyways, so this is Ruth basically telling, Ruth saying to Naomi, and after Naomi released her, this is what Ruth says. But Ruth replied, don't ask me to leave you and turn back. Wherever you go, I will go. Wherever you live, I will live. Your people will be my people, and your God will be my God. Wherever you die, I will die, and I will be there, and I will be buried. May the Lord punish me severely if I allow anything but death to separate us. When Naomi saw that Ruth was determined to go with her, she said nothing more. So with this passage here, basically Ruth is saying that she is willing to sacrifice and let go of everything that she has and put her faith in Naomi and put her faith in God, and saying that, Lord, I'm willing to let everything go. How uncomfortable it is to see that Ruth, who just lost her husband, is now letting go by her mother-in-law. How do you think that she would feel at that moment? She just lost everything, she left everything at home, and now she lost her husband, and her mother-in-law is telling her to leave, to basically let go. So Ruth is basically putting her faith and her loyalty to Naomi. All right, and God blessed this. So afterwards, I'm not going to read it now, but afterwards, Ruth begins to work in the fields, and that's where Boaz saw her. Right, so Boaz saw her, and in the end, Boaz and Ruth basically had a child. And that child, all right, it's interesting because you see the faithfulness of Ruth from when she started, where she was before, to what happened. So Ruth gave birth, all right, to Obed. Obed was the father of Jesse. Jesse was the father of David. So Ruth was David's great-grandmother, right? So if we look at the lineage there and we look at the line there, we see how God basically blessed her all throughout the time there. Where she went from being uncomfortable to a new land where she did not know what was going on. She didn't know. She was just married to Naomi's son, who passed away, and now she's in a new land, and where she feels uncomfortable, she doesn't know what's going on, but she's willing to give everything up for for that. And now you see that how God had blessed her with a lineage down the line. All right, and so, many of us sometimes, that was my first, well, not my first, but I always hear of Ruth, but I didn't know the actual story of what had happened. But when you actually read it and said that the lineage that she had passed down, I was like, wow, like, that's really how God did it. It's like, through her faithfulness with Naomi, God was faithful to her in her family, right? And so she was able to have another child, and Naomi was able to have a grandson, right? And so that's just one example of that. Faith is uncomfortable. We don't know what God's going to do. Sometimes we say, God, I don't understand. I don't understand what's going on. God, I don't know what's going on, but I trust you enough to know that you're going to lead the way, right? That's the same with Job. Let's go to Job. Job was a man of integrity, was a man who feared God, was a man who loved the Lord, right? But if we read Job 1, verse 20 to 22, this was after Job lost everything. Right? If we know the story of Job, he lost his sons, his daughters, he lost his possessions, he lost everything. Right? But it says here, Job stood up and tore his robe in grief. Then he shaved his head and fell to the ground to worship. He said, I came naked from my mother's womb, and I will be naked when I leave. The Lord gave me what I had, and the Lord has taken it away. Praise the name of the Lord. In all of this, Job did not sin by blaming God. How uncomfortable is it if you were in Job's position, right? How tragic it is that we look at Job and we read about Job and it's like, why is this happening to this man of God? But this man of God remained faithful, Though he stumbled along the way, right? He questioned God. He had back and forth conversations with God. If you guys read the whole of Job, it's basically like he went from like here in his faith to like down here in his faith. He's like, why am I even alive, Lord? Why did you just not take me away? Right? And so if we actually, even his own wife was like, why are you still praising the Lord? Should you not curse him? Sometimes we have those people around us, that in our situations, it's like, why do you still have faith? Why are you still believing for something that you yourself know that your situation is not in that position for us to be like, oh, let's be joyful today. But here we see Job, it says, the Lord gave me what I had, and the Lord has taken it away. So he knows that his possessions, what he had with his family, was not out of desire, but it was a blessing from the Lord. And you see, if after here, in Job, actually, Job 2, verse 9 to 10, if we can go there, Bri. This is what I was talking about. His wife said to him, are you still trying to maintain your integrity? Curse God and die. Wow, what a lovely wife. What a lovely wife to say, curse God and die. But Job replied, you talk like a foolish woman. Clap back. Should we accept only good things from the hand of God and never anything bad? So in all of this, Job said nothing wrong. Come on, let that sink in for a moment. This couple just lost everything. Their sons, their daughters, possessions, their land. Now Job is now stricken with he's sick. His body is sick, right? But he says to his wife, you talk like a foolish woman. He basically corrected her in a sense that, should we only accept the good things from God and not the bad things? Are we only looking at the blessings but not the trials and not the challenges? So these are different characters. There's so much more to this, but again, I only have limited time. But in the end, if we go to Job 42, verse 20 to 21, and this is after God basically corrected Job. This is after God revealed to Job who he is. There was mighty things of what God has done after Job had questioned him. Job demanded, God, why aren't you answering me? God, he was questioning God. And sometimes that's what we do. We question God. We go and ask God, why is this happening to me? God, you did this for my family, but why is this happening to me now? God, why did you put me in this situation? And sometimes, most of the times, God doesn't answer us straight away. And that's what causes us to lose that faith that we have, not only in God, but in ourselves. Am I really able to go through this? right? But this is Job that said this. I know that you can do anything. This is him talking about God, after God had basically corrected him in a sense. I no one can stop you. You asked, who is this that questions my wisdom with such ignorance? It is I. So he owned up to what he basically knew he messed up, right? So it is I, and I was talking about things I knew nothing about, things far too wonderful for me. You said, listen, and I will speak. I have some questions for you, and you must answer them. And I had only heard about you before, but now I have seen you with my own eyes. I take back everything I said, and I sit in dust and ashes to show my repentance. Again, and I take back everything I said, and I sit in dust and ashes to show my repentance. So Job recognized and realized that I was wrong. And when I read that, I was like, oh, that was like what happened to me last night. When God was like, right, like, why do you have such little faith? I have walked with you through different seasons of your life. I will share my testimony, a little bit of my testimony later. But I have walked with you through life, through different seasons where I went from the lowest from the highest to the lowest, and it's a roller coaster. But there were times when I questioned God, times when I said, God, you know what? I don't get you. I don't get what you want me to do. I don't understand why you put me in this situation in the first place. But God has always been faithful to me, and that not only has He corrected me, but He has aligned me into where I meant to be. All right? So again, the first point is that faith is uncomfortable. All right, so the second point is faith is trust. How many of us know the story of Joseph? I hope we all do know the story of Joseph, right? You know, this man of God who had dreams, who got betrayed by his own family, basically, right? Who his brother Judah was the one who sold him to the Egyptians, right? Into slavery, right? And so we begin to see the life of Joseph. Of why is this man of God would remain faithful to God after everything that has happened to him? Why would he remain faithful when his own family rejected him? When his own brothers sold him and lied to his father? So basically his whole family knew nothing except his own brothers, because they were jealous of him. So in the end, Joseph was thrown into slavery, and many of us know the story. Potiphar's wife tried to seduce him, but he refused. So let's actually go there. In Genesis 39, see, this is after Joseph refused Potiphar's wife. But Joseph refused. Look, he told her, my master trusts me with everything in his entire household. No one here has more authority than I do. Let me say that again. No one here has more authority than I do. He has held back nothing from me except you, because you are his wife. How could I do such a wicked thing? It would be a great sin against God. So basically, Joseph, even at that time of when he was slavery, he already had favor with the Pharaoh. The Pharaoh already trusted him enough to take care of the house, basically. No one here has more authority than I do. He has held nothing from me except you. So he had everything, obviously, except the wife, because you're not supposed to. And so with that, Joseph was actually also rebuking the wife, saying that, how could I betray my master when he is faithful to me, when he has faith in me? How can I break that trust, that loyalty for something that is forbidden? Not only am I breaking that trust, not only am I breaking his faith in me, but I'm also sinning against God. Right? And so we see that, and God honored Joseph's faithfulness. Do you guys know how long Joseph waited in the cells before God took him out? 13 years, plus more. How many of us have prayed for something for that long and has seen nothing yet? Right? And how many of us have given up when we've been praying for something for so long, yet year after year, day after day, nothing? And then you begin to just forget about that prayer. You begin to forget about things. But you know what? God didn't forget about Joseph.
Right.
If you think about it, God did not forget about Joseph. 13 years is a long time. All right, that's Jay's age right now. Happy birthday, Jay. So, like, 13 years is a long time. And you know what? He helped the people in the prison, but they forgot about him. So he had every reason to be mad. But you know what? He was in there and still loving God. And you know what? God still took care of him. And I love this verse. Let's go to Genesis 50, verse 17 to 20. This was after everything, okay? When Jacob already passed away, and then this was already near Joseph's end of time, okay? It says here, this is, his brothers basically are saying, we are your slaves, right? We are your slaves. We've done you wrong. We're going to be your slaves. We are your slaves. You have every right to treat us as slaves. But this is what Joseph said. Please forgive your brothers this is the brothers basically saying, please forgive your brothers for the great wrong they did to you, for the sin in treating you so cruelly. So we, the servants of God, of your father, this is his brothers, okay, beg you to forgive our sin. When Joseph received the message, he broke down and wept. Then his brothers came and threw themselves down before Joseph. Look, we are your slaves, they said. If we can go to further down, right? And so this is my favorite here. This is like, but Joseph replied, don't be afraid of me. Am I God that I can punish you? You intended to harm me, but God intended it all for good. He brought me to this position so I could save the lives of many people. You intended to harm me, but God intended it for good. So Joseph knew in that time, however long he had to wait in that time, he said, God, I still trust you. God, I don't know why you put me here in the first place. I don't know why my family rejected me, but I still trust you. You know, trusting God means, and having faith in God means more, it's that we trust God more than we trust ourselves. And that's what Joseph did, right? When he was able to trust God more than he trusted himself, not only was he able to forgive his brothers, but he was able to save the lives of many people. It was through his life that he was able to, you know, like, I could go on and on about the life of Joseph, but, you know, with limited time that we have. But Joseph not only forgave his brothers, but he also showed them what perfect and unfailing love is. His brothers said that, you know, please forgive us. They begged for mercy. They begged Joseph. Yet he was like, who am I am I God that I can punish you? Who am I? I'm still Joseph, your brother. And he was able to share and to not just share, but also inspire his brothers that even though that they wronged him, that he was still able to turn that into something good. Right? And so, you know, it took years, but ultimately God used Joseph for the good of the people. 13 years is a very long time. 13 years is 13 years. and sometimes we read the Bible and we don't know exactly how long, because I believe it doesn't really state that there. Does it really state that there? But he's just there for a long time. Right, and he even told the chef or the people that he dreamt about, or that he, you know, interpreted the dreams, and said, "Don't forget about me, don't forget about me." But they forgot. And I remember one teaching that Pastor Knapp, I think it was Pastor Knapp, Pastor Happy, that I believe that because they forgot, the people who he helped, they forgot, was that God intended for that. Now for us, we think, why would God intend for that? It's because God was still preparing Joseph. He was still not ready to lead the people of Israel in Egypt. He was still not prepared to be the second in command next to Pharaoh, right? Because if he was released there, then Pharaoh would have never had those dreams. If he was released there, then he would have never been second in command, where second highest, he had rule over everything except for Pharaoh, right? So we see the faithfulness of Joseph, and we see also the faithfulness of God. It goes both ways, right? It goes both ways. It can never just be, okay, God, I receive your faithfulness, but then nothing. I don't have faith in God. It's okay. He's faithful to me anyway. And that's something that a lot of us even are going through right now. And so, faith is trust, and that's what Joseph did. He trusted God more than he trusted himself, right? And so, and our next point is that faith is confidence. How many of us know the story of Daniel, right? Daniel, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. I didn't even know that David was actually also named Belteshazzar. They called him Belteshazzar. In that was his Babylonian name, right? And so with that, and then even Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, that's their Babylonian names, all right? I can't pronounce their names, their real names. I'm just not even going to try because I'm probably going to butcher their names. But, we know the story of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, right? And so we see that Daniel, even in exile, Daniel remained faithful and God provided for that. When they trained him, he would not eat the food or drink the wine. He only ate the vegetables. And he told the eunuch, is that called eunuch? Eunuch of Babylon that, hey, give us 10 days to show you that, that God will provide for us. 10 days later, they looked healthier than the people that actually ate the food of the Babylonians and drank the wine. So we see that they were elevated to a higher position. All right, so they remained faithful in God. They did not bow down to the Babylonian ways or to worship the Babylonian gods, but they also they were promoted in a sense that they were, whenever the king would basically have his court, he would call them. And Daniel, God gave him the gift to interpret dreams, right? We see later down the road Nebuchadnezzar, right? That he was able to help him out with that. But not only Daniel, but there was also Abram, before he was even called Abraham. So I've heard a lot that Abraham is the father of faith. Abraham is obviously the one who God promised to be the father of many nations. Look at the stars. These are how many descendants. Count how many in the seas. So let's go to Genesis 12, verse 1, if we could, please. This was before Abraham was called Abraham. He was first called Abram. Sarah was called Sarai. So before they changed their names. So this one is what the Lord commanded Abraham. Leave your native country, your relatives, and your father's family, and go to the land that I will show you. What if God actually told you that? Leave everything you have right now. Go to a foreign country and just trust me. Would you? Let's be real here. Let's be real here. When you're in a country, when you're in your household, everything's going well, but the next thing you know, God's like, nope, you go somewhere else. And a lot of us, came from the Philippines, right? My whole family did. I was only 7 years old when I left the Philippines. Imagine my mom and dad having 4 kids. I was 7, Aldi was 5, Milo was 4, Christine was 1. Wow. So imagine 4 of us in an airport. Just now that I'm older and now that I try to understand what my parents go through. How much faith did it really take for them to come here? We had my uncle who from Chicago drove to Canada to help us, but he had to leave. So we had to be self-sufficient, right? And a lot of us don't have relatives here. A lot of us don't know people here, right? We just have other fellow Filipinos that came with us too. But we don't have that special connection. Do you know what I mean? And now when I went back home to Philippines and now I'm back here, it's like I begin to understand everything that my family left. Not just their possessions, not just whatever, but they left family. They left their loved ones to come here. And I always ask my mom and dad, why'd you come here? It's like, we wanted it because we want the best for our family. And to think of it, if we didn't move here, I would not be here. We would not be here. You know, I would not meet certain people that have really blessed my life. You know, I would not grow up in a country where I learned everything about who I was, who I am. And most importantly, I would not have encountered the Lord. Seriously, like, for those who really know me, like, of what I have done before, it's like I could have really plummeted down. I would not be here. I would honestly, I feel like, I don't know, I'd just be somewhere out in the streets of Philippines doing random things. But here I am, with family, with loved ones here, who I can say that you guys are my family. So that's what God did to Abraham. God promised Abraham at such an old age that you will bear a son. Imagine hearing that too. You're what, 75, almost 80, pushing to 80, and then God tells you, you know, you're gonna have a son. You're going to be a father to many nations. So imagine hearing that from Abraham. I read Abraham over and over, you know, and if we could go right to verse 20 to 21, or Genesis 15, 1 to 6. Right here. This is God talking to Abram. Sometime later, the Lord spoke to Abram in a vision and said to him, "Do not be afraid, Abram, for I will protect you, and your reward will be great." But Abram replied, "O sovereign Lord, what good are all your blessings when I don't even have a son?" Valid question, right? Valid question. "Since you've given me no children, Eliezer of Damascus, a servant in my household, will inherit all my wealth. You have given me no descendants of my own, so no one of my servants will be there." So, sorry, can you go back to that, Ray? "So one of my servants will be my heir." Next. "Then the Lord said to him, 'No, your servant will not be your heir, for you will have a son of your own, and who will be your heir?'" Later on, we find out it's Isaac, right? It says, "Then the Lord took Abram outside and said to him, 'Look up into the sky and count the stars if you can. That's how many descendants you will have.' And Abram," this is key, "and Abram believed the Lord, and the Lord counted him as righteous because of his faith." We see here that Abram had questions for God, right? "God, I am of old age. God, I cannot bear a son. I cannot bear an heir." But and then he said that maybe one of my servants can. But God said, no, you will have your own heir with Sarah, right? And it says here, "And Abram believed the Lord." He had questions, but he trusted God. He had questions, but he believed in God. And I want to relate that even to us too. Going back to for us who immigrated here from Philippines. We had questions. I'm sure you all had questions when you landed right here. In that airport, I'm sure you're like, "What am I doing here? Why am I here? Did God really intend for me to be here?" But I see you all right now, and I'm like, I can confidently say, yeah, He intended for you guys to be here. Otherwise, I would not have an extended family of my own. You know, my family remained faithful in God, and now God is now faithful to us. Not just blessing my family, but also using us as a blessing to the church. Right? And so this is Abraham is such a big example of what faith really is. You know, we see that Abraham believed the Lord, and you know what? The Lord saw him and counted him as righteous because of his faith. I pray that one day I would have the faith of Abraham. one day, not now, but maybe one day. You know, it's so slowly getting there. And then later down the road, if we read down the story, he has Isaac, right? And then when the angel said, "Sacrifice him," what did Abraham say? Nothing. He just did it, and he was ready to. Right? So we see that God promised Abraham now, okay, Abraham, now that he has a son, the Lord's like, Are you willing to give him up? Not even no questions asked. He led him to the mountain where he was supposed to be sacrificed. But then the angel stopped him. And so we see the faithfulness of Abraham. We see that this man of God was willing to go through all of that, was willing to sacrifice the one promise that he held on to for years, because he knew that God knew what he was doing. Sometimes for us, we are not willing to sacrifice. Sometimes for us, when God is like, are you really willing to trust me when you sacrifice this? I know we all could relate to what sacrifice means, right? We sacrifice, I'm sure your parents here, you sacrifice for your family, the countless hours, the overtime hours. As young people, sometimes we overlook that. Right, guys? We overlooked what our parents really sacrificed for. And sometimes that their faith in us. I know that my mom is a very strong and faithful woman, and she prayed for all of us. And yes, we had obstacles along the way, but look, there's 4 of us here now. In the house of the Lord, joyfully serving God. I see my parents' faith. I see their trust in me and trust in the family, and I can't help but think, wow. So God, this is what faithfulness really looks like. They were faithful when it was hard. They're faithful when it's good. They're faithful when things are bad. They're faithful when things are good. Everyone here is blessed to be here. Sometimes we go through so many obstacles in life. Sometimes God asks us to do the hardest things, the most difficult things. I know even Queen App had to leave Cebu. I know he's like loving Cebu, but he's here now, so I'm happy he's here now. But if he wasn't there to really mentor me, or at the Happy was not there to mentor me, not be here. Honestly, all of us would not be here. Not just to build relationships with them, but to really encounter God. Right? To really know what God's love looks like, what God's faithfulness looks like. That his promises are always yes and amen. Abraham did not see his descendants, obviously. He didn't see his legacy going down the road, but God fulfilled that. God fulfilled it. We may not see our prayers happen in our lifetime, but God will fulfill that. We may not understand, God, why are you bringing this in now? And you keep praying and praying. I just know and that there are some of us that have been praying for certain things for years. A long time. I don't know how long, but a long time. And in your heart, you may feel that you are ready to give up. But I am here to encourage you and to really tell you that do not give up. Amen. It's easy to say that, but it's another thing to have faith in that. Let's go to Hebrews 11, please. 11 verse 1 to 2. This was also Hebrews. Oh, if we can go to verse 1 to 2, Bri. I'll show this after, but yeah. Faith shows the reality of what we hope for. It is the evidence of things we cannot see. Through their faith, the people in the days of old, in Old Testament, earned a good reputation. So, and if we go to verse 8 to that, Bri, it says, it was by faith that Abraham obeyed when God called him to leave home and go to another land that God would give him as his inheritance. He went without knowing where he was going. It was by faith that Abraham trusted God. It was by faith that he looked at God and said, okay, I trust you. I have these questions, but I still trust you. And so seeing that and seeing the faith of Abraham encourages me to be like, God, where do you think I'll go? Now it made me ask, where am I gonna go? And then you begin to be like, God, what's my destiny? God, what's your dream for me? God, what's your purpose for me? Are we really gonna be 100% in? Because we can't be juggling around, what Pastor Knapp would always say, we can't be juggling around from not 100% to being like of the world, then with God. It's like you're either 100% in or you're not in at all. And that's the reality of it. Are we really willing to sacrifice everything for the kingdom? Are we really willing? Do we have enough faith in God to know that even if you don't know where your road is going, that you still trust that God is driving? Right? And so even if there are questions in our minds, you still believe that He will answer you. That even if when you're tired of everything around you, you continue to push forward knowing what He knows what He's doing. And that's hard. That's hard. And so with that point, that when you're tired of everything around you, I want to share a testimony. It's a bit of I wouldn't say sad, but there is like a joyful ending to it in a sense. So one of my best friends recently passed away. I was with him from elementary up to high school, and he passed away because of brain cancer. They found that he had a tumor 2016, and then last year it was that he passed away. Last year I was in lead school too when I found out. We were in the middle of a session when I was told that he passed away. And I just visited him too that same weekend. I went to see him, and he was okay because they removed the tumor from his head, but there were complications that it began to spread too far and too much. And so I found out there, and honestly, the first reaction for me was I was angry at God. I was angry at God. I was like, I just saw him. Why would you take him away now? He was fine. I was talking to him, having conversations with him. But it wasn't until I saw his mom. His mom was like, her name is Kathy. I'll just say that. Her name is Kathy. And her mom, I began to talk to her. But she wasn't angry. It was hard for them, but they were at peace. They were saying that the turmoil in their family not only brought them closer together, but brought their faith closer to God. So sometimes in that, and in the lighter situation, she spoke to me, she talked to me, she's like, Rai, you know what? We are thankful to God. One, because He's not in pain anymore. And two, we know that He's up there with the Lord. Right? I have faith knowing that we, as a family, that we continue to move on even without my son. I have faith knowing that God means everything for good and not to harm us. That His plans are way above our own plans. That His understanding is above even our own understanding. That sometimes we limit God to what our own understanding is, and that whatever situation is thrown at us, then we base our faith on that limitation of God. Do you get what I mean? So that opened my eyes to a bigger reality, being what words to say when you just lost your son literally a couple of days ago, and then here you are telling me that. I began to rebuke myself. I was like, wow, why was I angry? But it was a natural reaction. And sometimes that's what we have. We get natural reactions of things that happen to us. And sometimes that we begin to question God. And faith is not seeing God, but knowing that He's still there. Faith is trusting God that He's hearing us, even when we feel like we've just been constantly praying, but He can't hear us, but He's listening. Faith is knowing that even if you are able to trust God even if you don't trust yourself. Right? God, I don't trust myself enough to make these decisions. I need You. God, I am as broken as ever, and sometimes I can't feel You, I can't hear You, but I know You're there listening. God, I know that through the roughest moments in my life, I know you're still there. You have been faithful to me. Why won't you be faithful to me later down the road? You know, it's cliche to say, but God will never leave us nor forsake us. We always hear that, but do we really ponder upon that? Do we really let that sink into our lives and think, you know, what do those words really mean? It doesn't become reality until something happens that you begin to question that. Will God really leave me and not forsake? And will God really not leave me and He won't forsake me? Because there are times when we think that He will. Let's be honest. And sometimes that, and I feel that even for us here, that there are certain things that we want from God, that we demand from God. God, give me this answer right now. But most of the time, He won't. Most of the time, He will just ask us to wait and have faith in Him, because, you know, He knows what's best for you. You know, sometimes faith is trusting what God has written about us, even if we're dying to change it. God may be wanting you to do something, but you really don't want to do that. An example of that is Jonah. He ran away from what God has asked him to do. So, you know, I think I went a bit over, but it's okay. But I really feel and I really want to pray for, I don't know, the Lord was just giving me an impression that there are certain people here who may have been praying for something for a very long time, may have been going through something for a very long time. And you know, you guys, or they may feel that why, or the questions come and ask and say, why is God not answering them? God, are you even there? God, are you even listening to me? God, do you see how much pain I'm in? God, do you not see how much weight I'm carrying? God, do you not see how much pain and how much, do you not see me right now? But God looks down at us, and those words, my son, in whom I am well pleased. We have to understand and know that when God looks at us, He says He delights in us. God loves us. And you know what? That I just pray that there would be a sense of peace over your minds today. So as we bow down our heads,